Everybody see my screen? Big green screen. Okay. All right. So I'm Christine Martin from the Regen Ranch in Texas, and this is the state of the world. In 1965, 4% of our population had a chronic disease. Today, 46% of our children have a chronic disease. Today, we need to eat 21 oranges to get the same nutrition from one orange in 1950. This is a map of the use of glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, in 1992. This map shows the dramatic increase in the use of glyphosate in 2014. A group of mothers tested food they were feeding their children and found that Cheerios, together with other products, were contaminated with glyphosate. This is the main ingredient in Roundup that's used to kill plants. What is the glyphosate killing in our bodies? I wonder. Confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, were the solution to feeding the world. Hectares and hectares of animals being fed grain, which they weren't designed to eat. And this is the true reason why the world believes cows are causing increased methane into the atmosphere. Is this really the best solution to feeding the world? So because of the animals in the CAFO that are releasing the methane, scientists have figured out how to create plant-based meat. I love scientists, and I know their heart is in the right place, but is this really the solution to the root cause or a solution to the symptom? We're also experiencing more flooding. Our agricultural practices have messed up the small and large water cycles, as well as the soil's water capacity, and that leads to flooding. Because of our agricultural practices and wind and water erosion, we're losing a football field's worth of soil per acre per year, a football field. The Industrial Revolution has been phenomenal in its development of technology, but it has also increased the carbon level in our atmosphere, which many believe is the cause of climate change. And this is not just a local problem. This is a global pandemic. Our agricultural practices are turning our planet into a desert. Over the last 40 years, world agriculture has lost 430 million hectares of developed agricultural land. That's nearly a third of the area now being cultivated. So how do we fix this? Is there a solution? We fix these problems by understanding that soil health is the key. Soil health will lead to livestock health, which will lead to human health, which will lead to ecosystem health, which will lead to earth health. We fix our soil by changing our agricultural practices. Our current model for agriculture is degenerative. It's consumptive. It's lowering the essential quality of our oil, as shown in this graph, with the x-axis as ecosystem carrying capacity and the time in production. We are slowly reducing the quality of our soil. We need to regenerate our soil to be fully functioning. We need to increase the ecosystem carrying capacity. And we do this by working with nature. Do you guys remember your middle school science class and learning about photosynthesis? Plants take carbon dioxide and break it down into oxygen that they put out so that we can breathe it. And that carbon turns to sugars that feed the plants and the world living underground. And this is called the big exchange. The underground, the plant shares the liquid sugars they made to the organisms like fungi and bacteria in exchange for these organisms making minerals and water more available to them. A plant or a tree shares 20 to 80% of their carbohydrates to feed soil organisms. The plants pump it in and the soil organisms store it. There's an entire population of living organisms under our feet that we don't consider. This photosynthesis activity is a main instrument to having the 4 fundamental ecosystems fully functioning. The water cycle. This is the movement of water from atmosphere to soil and back, and how that movement affects plant and animal life. We cannot make more water. There's a finite amount of water on this earth. So we need to make sure that we have an effective water cycle. And let's consider that the water that we're drinking was once peed by a dinosaur. We've only got a finite amount of water. The mineral cycle. This is the movement of minerals and nutrients and how that movement affects plant and animal life. As an example, the movement of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus from the atmosphere back into the soil and back into the atmosphere. The third one is the biological community. This is the ongoing development of biological communities, otherwise known as succession. As an example, this is the shift from rock to lichen to annual grasses to perennial grasses to shrubs and eventually to forests. And lastly, and importantly, the energy flow. This is the movement of energy from the sun through the plants and to creatures. The more plants we have, the more energy we can convert to feed the above and below ground living organisms. We can accomplish this with these 6 principles. We keep soil disturbance to the minimum. We keep a living root at all times. We keep the soil covered. We use livestock in our operations. We increase the biodiversity that we're managing. And lastly, we know our environment and our operation. When we have bare soil, it doesn't allow for much carbon or water infiltration. On the other hand, when we have soil covered with grass or crops, we have water and carbon infiltration. When we till up the soil, you're disturbing and eliminating any roots and removing the armor or cover, and thereby carbon and water infiltration will be ineffective. If we no-till crops into existing covered ground, then we keep the soil covered, living roots and diversity remains, allowing for more carbon and water infiltration. When we apply chemicals such as herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, then we're reducing the diversity and disturbing the ecosystems, and water and carbon dioxide infiltration is ineffective. And because we're spraying, the nitrous oxide is emitted into the atmosphere. Applying chemicals disrupts the normal big exchange that's happening underground, and by making the soil organisms and the exchange lazy, leading to an addiction to the chemicals, just like a human being addicted to certain chemicals. So if we don't use chemicals and allow nature to express ourselves through our careful management, then we can honor these principles. CAFOs violate all the principles, including the unnatural living conditions and the animals. Ruminants are the only species on this planet that can convert cellulose, the main ingredient in a grass plant, into a product that a human can eat. The rumen is designed with microbes that digest this cellulose and provide minerals and organisms through their manure to assist in the mineral cycle. Once grain is fed to a ruminant, those rumen microbes die, and the animal needs to create new microbes to digest this grain, increasing the risk of sickness. By managing the ruminants in pasture with planned grazing, and by planned grazing, I mean you place the animals at the right place at the right time for the right reason, we can improve the ecosystem functions and honor these principles. If it rains on bare soil, it can't soak in. It will evaporate and it will run off. But if you have plants, they let water out as a vapor. Any water that leaves the soil through the plant, it's called a cooling effect, evapotranspiration. Changes that impede the presence of ground cover, notably desertification and deforestation, have a negative impact on green water. This is a quote. This is significant because water held in soil is what most directly and efficiently affects the community's ability to grow food. Indeed, while water planning and policy focus on irrigation, most of the world's agriculture is rain-fed. That's a quote from Water in Plain Sight. In Los Angeles, or otherwise known as LA, we lose 3.8 billion gallons of water per 1 inch of rain. Rain on bare ground causes compaction and creates erosion. We want to have the ground covered so that we can infiltrate water and absorb the water, so that we don't have compacted and capped soil. Microclimates also develop in large areas of bare soil. It happens over cities, in Denver, in Houston, in Austin. Christine Jones, an Australian soil biologist, has videos of Australian areas where heat island is keeping rain from occurring. So the bare soil affects the temperature around, and it also affects the frequency of rainfall. And I can share that on my ranch, I receive a few millimeters more of rain than my neighboring ranches that frequently till and spray their soil. Converting to holistic and regenerative agriculture can change the world. It will take degenerated soil and make it regenerative. And if you want to have more info and get involved, I have a Facebook group, a blog on my website, and you can find me on social media where I post frequently on what I'm doing on the ranch and how to regenerate the soil. Thank you. That's all I have.
Snaps and a round of applause for Christine. Amazing, amazing job. Looks like, I think there's a couple questions here for you, Christine.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Ebony, you're top of the list.
Yeah, that was really interesting, and I appreciate that. One thing that I'm almost afraid to ask, but I'm really curious. You said something about dinosaur pee. Did I catch that right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Can you say a little more about that? Thank you.
So we only have, yeah, no, that's a good question. So we only have we cannot create new water. Water will change from ice to water, and it will be evaporated. It will go up to the atmosphere. It will be formed in clouds. And then when it rains, it falls and it infiltrates in the ground. And that water that is infiltrated will then support the water table and the springs, which will then come up. But the water we have now is the same water we had 500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, if you believe in that philosophy of creation and evolution. So yes, the water we're drinking was once drunk and peed out by a dinosaur. Does it make us think about how we're handling our water now, right? What our current agricultural practices are doing? As an example, Midwest is a big agricultural production area, and it all feeds into the Mississippi River, where the Mississippi dumps all the water into the Gulf Coast. It's actually called a dead zone because nothing lives on there. Fish die, all that glyphosate, all those chemicals that people are using on the farm is going into that river. And so fishing has become almost non-existent. That water is uber polluted. And you see all that trash coming into the Gulf. And of course, you know, that water is then going into the ocean. How we manage our water is very critical. Good. All right. Anything else, Ebony? Okay. Mr. Paul.
Christine, you are phenomenal. I've been following all your posts, and this is a space that we live in. I mean, I don't do what you do, but we believe in everything you do, and I support you 100%. It's phenomenal that people are not aware of this. This needs to be taught everywhere. I mean, people need to be aware of the foods that they're eating. It's terrible. It's killing us, literally.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. I have a question. You had a screenshot about the tilling and non-tilling. Okay, so I heard something about, is it every 7 years that you're supposed to let it rest, the land?
So the Bible says that every 7 years you should rest the land. And rest is one of 6 tools that we can use to manage our land. The other 5 tools are technology, human creativity, animal impact, rest, and then the 6th one's not coming to me, but it will. But rest as a tool can cause more damage than it can improve, depending on the environment that you're in. And the environment, there's 2 criteria for the environment. One is the amount of rainfall, the frequency of rainfall throughout the year, and then also how quickly the rate of decay. Sorry, I'm going to turn off a fan here. And the second is the rate of decay. Obviously, the more water you have frequently throughout the year, the more decay you have. When, like in West Texas or in the arid areas of California, if you don't apply disturbance, if you don't use animals, if you don't come in and mow, if you don't do several things, rest will actually create more desert. And the hill country of Texas, which is very arid, rest has actually caused mesquite and huisache, which is a tree that is really a nuisance to grow because of rest. Understanding your environment and what tools will do within that environment is critical.
So we live in North Carolina. It rains all the time, it seems like. What do you recommend? My wife grows all kinds of herbs and vegetables and stuff like that. Nowhere near the scale of what you got going on there, but what do you recommend? Should she be tilling that land or not tilling it? Don't till it.
The way I like to share it is, what happened if I was to cut you in your middle and turn you inside out?
Well, it actually happened to me.
But yeah, but completely inside out, right? I mean, they put you together, right? But they didn't put you inside out. So if you think of whatever's happening above ground is also happening below ground, and there's all sorts of biology underground, and there's root systems, and there's water channels and water pockets, and there's a whole living community living underground. The minute you till that, you've just killed the whole environment. And when you turn it, so all that environment, that all those living organisms that are living below ground, the minute you till it and turn it over and they're exposed to the sun, they die.
Wow.
And so you're actually killing all the potential nutrition that you want in your plants that then you want to eat. And because you have no living roots, because you don't have plants, you're also not getting photosynthesis. So Mother Nature does not like to be naked. She really doesn't like to be naked. So she will create her own cover by bringing in weeds. Weeds are her first response to being naked. And how many gardeners like weeds in their plants, in their beds? I know I don't.
No, nobody does.
Yeah.
One last question. I don't want to take up any more time, but she does raised bed gardening. Do you recommend?
Yeah, raised bed is good. The trick to keeping weeds from coming in is to put a mulch. Put chips or put mulch in there to keep that soil covered. You'll see that you'll have to water less, and you'll see that the plants last longer, and you'll see that when it rains, that water will infiltrate quicker than running off.
Thank you so much. You're a plethora of information. This is my best presentation today, for me at least. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Kieran.
Christine, thank you for sharing so much valuable information. People, from my perspective, are totally unaware of what's happening to the ecosystem, to the land, the soil, the mountains. In my work, I do a lot of food sensitivity testing through kinesiology muscle testing. And over 20 years, in my opinion, I have seen a dramatic increase in sort of gut dysbiosis. Emotional trauma seem to be heightened. Organs, I can test for organ function. Organs seem to be under a lot more duress and stress. Irritable bowel syndrome has increased dramatically, in my opinion. And I'm saying this all coming from the soil, because we are what we eat, or we are what we absorb from our food. And I'll just finish with this to reinforce what you're saying. I totally wholeheartedly agree. I can't do video at the minute, but I totally wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. A client who loves tomatoes, I tested her for the deadly nightshade family. You know what that is? And she
Yes.
showed to everyone. Now she's gone off it. She's wondering why her arthritis has got better.
Right.
I wonder. She brought me tomatoes to test. I kept one of them, and that was 3 weeks ago. I could send you a photograph I sent her the other day. It has not gone bad.
Yeah,
Tomatoes
that's
just
not
gone-
natural.
And I told her the reason why. It is because of an Arctic fish, and people are stunned. I would love to be able to use your video to show to people and say, look, it's happening at soil level. Then the food and the way you describe the cattle and eating natural grass, it's better for them, it's better for us compared to the large ground. Sorry, I'm ranting here. Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
sharing
Karen.
and
Yeah.
putting that together. Very, very informative and educational. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so I'll share that I started all this because I realized that the food I was eating was killing me. And so when I in Texas, around the corner is you drive half an hour, and I was having to drive 3 hours to go find food that I could eat. I started with 5 acres, and now I've got 100, and raising my own food and providing to others. But so for me, the health issue is very personal, and it drives my passion because, as Kieran said, and Lori could probably share, and Paul, we are sicker as a nation, as a country, as a world. And a lot of it is because of how we're treating the soil. All right,
Yeah.
any other questions?
Thank you.